Excuse me, you're in the wrong seat. Move now. Flight attendant Susan Powell's sharp command sliced through the American Airlines flight. She towered over the black businessman, arms crossed, blocking his view with deliberate intimidation. Kevin Brooks glanced up from his merger documents, meeting her hostile stare. Behind Susan, a white passenger tapped his foot impatiently, rolling his eyes at the inconvenience. "This is my assigned seat, ma'am," Kevin said calmly, showing his boarding pass. Susan snatched it without looking. Anyone can print fake tickets. This gentleman paid full price for first class. She jerked her thumb toward the white passenger. "You need to gather your things and move to the back where you belong." The cabin temperature seemed to drop. Passengers froze. A young woman in the seat beside him quietly started recording. "Have you ever been treated like you don't belong somewhere you've earned the right to be?" The overhead announcement crackled, reminding passengers to take their seats. Susan Powell planted herself firmly beside the seat, her seniority evident in every practiced gesture. She'd handled situations like this before. Her badge caught the cabin light as she crossed her arms, creating a human barrier between Kevin and his seat. "Look, I don't have time for games," Susan said, her voice rising just enough for surrounding passengers to hear. "We have a legitimate first-class passenger waiting, and you're holding up the entire flight." Todd Mitchell, the white passenger in question, stepped forward with theatrical impatience. His expensive watch glinted as he gestured toward the seat. "Finally, someone is handling this properly. I have a connecting flight in Atlanta and I can't miss it because of—" He paused, his meaning crystal clear. Kevin remained seated, his briefcase balanced on his lap. Inside, merger documents worth millions waited, but he focused on the immediate crisis. He pulled out his Platinum Elite status card alongside the boarding pass, both clearly displaying his name and seat assignment. "Ma'am, I've been flying American Airlines as a Platinum member. This is definitely my seat." His voice carried the quiet authority of boardroom negotiations, but Susan dismissed it with a wave. Anyone can fake these nowadays. She scoffed, barely glancing at the documents. "I see knockoff cards all the time. Security's gotten very sophisticated about catching fraudulent upgrades." Brooke Larson, a marketing executive in the seat beside him, discreetly angled her phone. Her Instagram Live notification popped up. "Discrimination on this American Airlines flight right now." Viewers started appearing and climbing fast. Comments began flooding in. The tension rippled through first class. Passengers in nearby rows turned to watch, some openly recording. The elderly couple nearby whispered anxiously. A business traveler a few rows back shook his head in disgust. "Just move along, buddy," Todd said, his tone suggesting he was doing everyone a favor. "Some of us have real business to conduct. I'm sure there's a perfectly good seat and coach." Kevin's phone buzzed against his thigh. "Board meeting coming up. Final vote on the American Airlines partnership." He ignored it, maintaining his composure despite the mounting humiliation. His leather briefcase held documents that could reshape American Airlines' future, but these people saw only skin color. "Sir, we have procedures," Susan continued, her voice growing more authoritative. "When there's a seating dispute, company policy requires passengers to cooperate with crew instructions. You can file a complaint later if you feel there's been an error." Brooks' livestream viewer count climbed higher. Comments streamed past. "This is disgusting. Someone called the news. I'm never flying American Airlines again." She kept her phone steady, capturing every word, every dismissive gesture. A flight attendant from coach appeared. Jamal, a young black man who looked uncomfortable witnessing the scene. He approached Susan hesitantly. "Susan, his boarding pass clearly shows." "Jamal, return to your section," Susan snapped. "I'm handling this." Jamal retreated, but his expression spoke volumes. Several passengers caught the exchange, recognizing the complex dynamics at play. Kevin opened his briefcase slightly, retrieving a business card. The motion was subtle, but Susan noticed. "Sir, I'm going to need you to close that and prepare to relocate. We're not running a mobile office here." "Ma'am, perhaps if you contact your supervisor, I don't need to contact anyone. I have full authority in this cabin." Susan's voice carried the smugness of someone wielding institutional power. "Either you move voluntarily or we'll have security escort you off this aircraft." The threat hung in the air. Brooks' livestream now showed a surging audience. The elderly woman nearby gasped audibly. Even Todd shifted uncomfortably. He'd wanted the seat, but the situation was escalating beyond his comfort zone. Kevin's phone buzzed again. This time, a text from his assistant about the Washington Post asking about the American Airlines investment. Should I comment? He silenced the device, but the irony wasn't lost on him. The upcoming board meeting would determine American Airlines' diversity initiatives. Today, he was living the problem firsthand. The announcement came again, urging passengers to settle in. Susan seized the urgency. "Sir, you're now officially delaying this flight. That's a federal offense. I'm calling ground security to remove you from the aircraft." She reached for her radio, the action designed to intimidate. Passengers murmured. Someone whispered, "This is crazy." Another voice, "Just let the man sit in his seat." But Susan had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Her authority was now publicly challenged, witnessed by dozens of phones and Brooks' growing live stream audience. In her mind, backing down would undermine her credibility with passengers and crew alike. Kevin remained perfectly still, his business training evident in every controlled breath. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with less drama than this flight attendant was creating over a seat assignment, but he also recognized the psychological trap. Any assertiveness would be labeled as aggressive or threatening. Todd cleared his throat. "Look, maybe we should just—" "No," Susan cut him off. "Company policy is clear. This passenger will comply or be removed." The pressure continued to build. Brooks' stream hit a sharp spike in viewers, and somewhere in his briefcase, Kevin carried documents that would soon turn this entire encounter into American Airlines' most expensive customer service failure in corporate history. The stage was set. The witnesses were recording. The power dynamics seemed clear to everyone watching. They had no idea what was coming next. The announcement crackled with the final boarding call. The announcement seemed to trigger something in Susan Powell. She keyed her radio with aggressive precision, her voice carrying across the cabin as she summoned reinforcements. "Ground control, this is Powell on the flight. I need a supervisor and security to the gate immediately. We have an uncooperative passenger refusing to follow crew instructions." Brooke Larson's live stream exploded. Viewer count jumped fast. Comments flooded the screen. Record everything. "This is insane. Where's the manager?" She adjusted her angle to capture the entire scene, her marketing instincts recognizing this moment's viral potential. Chief Flight Attendant Diane Lopez appeared from the galley, her supervisor's stripes immediately visible. Years with American Airlines had taught her to read situations quickly, but she was already primed by Susan's radio call. "What's the issue here?" Diane's tone was professionally neutral, but her body language aligned with Susan from the start. "Passenger in the seat refusing to relocate for a paying first-class customer," Susan explained, gesturing dismissively toward Kevin. "He's presenting fraudulent documentation and delaying our departure." Diane glanced at Todd Mitchell, who nodded eagerly. "I paid full fare for first class. This is ridiculous." Kevin handed Diane his boarding pass and Platinum Elite card without a word. She examined them briefly, but Susan leaned in, whispering something that made Diane's expression harden. "Sir, these disputes happen frequently," Diane said, returning the documents. "Our policy is to resolve seating issues with minimal disruption. We have several seats available in premium economy." "With respect, ma'am, I purchased this specific seat," Kevin interrupted quietly. "I have a confirmed reservation." Brooks' phone captured every nuance. Her live stream audience had grown with shares multiplying across social platforms. The hashtag about flight discrimination was gaining momentum organically. Ground Supervisor Brian Thompson jogged down the jet bridge slightly out of breath. A longtime airport veteran, he'd handled countless passenger disputes, but Susan's radio call had suggested something more serious. "Evening, folks. What seems to be the problem?" Before Kevin could respond, Susan launched into her narrative. Fraudulent documentation, refusing crew instructions, disrupting other passengers, potentially missed departure window. Brian's expression shifted as he absorbed Susan's characterization. He glanced at Kevin, then at the growing crowd of recording passengers, making quick calculations about liability and schedule disruption. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step off the aircraft so we can resolve this matter properly," Brian said, his tone suggesting non-negotiation. The cabin erupted in murmurs. Several passengers voiced objections. "This is discrimination. Let him stay in his seat. Check his documents properly." But other voices emerged too. "Just move him so we can leave. I have a connection to make. Security should handle this." The plane divided into vocal camps with Kevin at the center of a brewing social media storm. Brooks' stream showed viewers from multiple countries now, the story spreading beyond American borders. Officer Tanya Johnson entered the aircraft, her security uniform immediately commanding attention. A longtime airport veteran and the only black person in the official response team, she found herself in an impossible position. "Evening, everyone," Tanya said carefully. She'd watched Brooks' live stream during her walk to the gate, understanding the optics before entering. "Can someone explain the situation?" Diane stepped forward. "The passenger refuses to comply with crew instructions. We need him removed so we can maintain our departure schedule." Tanya approached Kevin, her expression neutral, but her eyes communicating something different. "Sir, can I see your documentation?" Kevin handed over his materials again. Tanya examined them thoroughly. The boarding pass clearly showed the seat. The elite status was legitimate. Even the seat selection timestamp proved everything was in order. "These documents appear valid," Tanya said slowly. "But the airline crew has discretionary authority over seating arrangements," Brian interjected. "Federal aviation regulations support crew decisions in these matters." Tanya nodded reluctantly. She understood the legal framework, but she also recognized racial profiling when she saw it. Her job required following procedures, even when those procedures enabled discrimination. The announcement came about the boarding door. The time pressure became unbearable. Diane made the decision that would cost American Airlines millions. "Sir, we're prepared to have you removed from this flight and banned from future American Airlines travel if you don't comply immediately." Kevin stood slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. Every passenger watched, every phone recorded, every social media feed captured this moment. He reached for his briefcase, and Susan smirked with satisfaction. "Should have moved when I asked nicely," she said, just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Brooks' livestream hit a major viewer surge. Comments poured in from journalists, civil rights organizations, and airline industry insiders. Someone had identified the flight number and was tracking it in real time. Another viewer had already posted American Airlines' customer service number. Kevin's phone vibrated with incoming calls from his assistant, his lawyer, board members who'd seen the live stream. He ignored them all, focusing instead on the briefcase in his hands. Todd Mitchell settled into the seat with theatrical relief, immediately requesting champagne from a passing flight attendant. His satisfaction was visible to everyone, including Brooks' cameras. Finally, Todd muttered, "Some people just need to learn their place." The comment hit Brooks' live stream like a bomb. Viewer outrage exploded in the chat. Screenshots flew across social platforms. The discrimination hashtag merged with another, creating a social media firestorm. Tanya Johnson stepped closer to Kevin, her voice low. "Sir, please just cooperate. I know this isn't right, but fighting it here won't help anyone." Kevin looked at her with something resembling sympathy. "Officer Johnson, you're absolutely correct. Fighting this here won't help anyone." His words carried strange emphasis, as if he knew something she didn't. Tanya frowned, sensing undercurrents she couldn't identify. Diane keyed her radio. "Ground control, passenger is complying. We'll need paperwork for the flight ban documentation. Copy that." The flight cleared for departure. The assembled crew, Susan, Diane, Brian, stood in a semicircle around Kevin, their authority apparently vindicated. They'd successfully removed an uncooperative passenger and maintained their schedule. Brooks' phone showed even more viewers now, with major news outlets beginning to pick up the story. Her hands shook slightly as she realized she was documenting something that would change everything for everyone involved. Kevin reached into his briefcase and withdrew a single document. Then he pulled out 2 business cards, holding them with the same care other people reserved for loaded weapons. The smug expressions around him were about to become something else entirely. "Before I leave," Kevin said quietly, "I think there are some people you should call." Kevin Brooks extended the first business card to Diane Lopez with the same deliberate precision he used in billion-dollar negotiations. The embossed lettering caught the cabin light. Kevin Brooks, Chief Executive Officer, Brooks Capital Partners. Diane's eyes moved from the card to Kevin's face, then back to the card. Her expression shifted like tectonic plates, confusion, recognition, then dawning horror. "Please, call your district manager immediately," Kevin said, his voice carrying a new quality that made everyone lean forward. "Tell Elena Ramirez that Brooks Capital Partners needs to discuss our American Airlines investment." The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Susan Powell's smug expression froze mid-formation. Brian Thompson stepped closer, squinting at the business card as if it might be written in a foreign language. Brooks Capital Partners, Diane whispered, the name triggering corporate memory. Her face drained of color as the implications cascaded through her mind. She'd seen that name on executive memos, board meeting minutes, quarterly reports. This wasn't just any investment firm. Kevin handed her the second card. This one bore the American Airlines logo alongside legal text, preferred stock certificate, Series A voting rights, significant ownership interest. Brooke Larson's live stream viewer count exploded. Comments flooded the screen faster than human eyes could read. Oh my God, plot twist. He owns the airline. This is insane. Major news outlets started embedding the stream on their websites in real time. We acquired our position recently, Kevin continued, his tone remaining conversational despite the bombshell, the largest private investment in American Airlines history. Significant investment in preferred stock with voting rights. The upcoming board meeting was scheduled to finalize our diversity initiative proposal. Susan Powell's hand flew to her throat. The champagne glass in Todd Mitchell's hand trembled as he processed what he was hearing. Officer Tanya Johnson stepped back instinctively, recognizing a seismic shift in power dynamics that her security training had never covered. Mr. Brooks, Diane stammered. I had no idea. That was exactly the point, Kevin replied, his executive presence now unmistakable. This flight was specifically chosen to observe frontline customer service practices. What you've witnessed is precisely why our investment includes mandatory bias training requirements and comprehensive diversity audits. Brian Thompson fumbled for his radio. Ground control. We need District Manager Ramirez on board immediately. Code Priority Alpha. This is not a drill. The aircraft fell into stunned silence. Passengers who'd been recording the discrimination now found themselves documenting corporate history. Brooks' phone captured every facial expression, every moment of realization, every second of the most expensive customer service failure in aviation history. The elderly couple exchanged glances of disbelief. The businessman nearby dropped his laptop, focusing entirely on the unfolding drama. Even Jamal, the coach flight attendant, had crept forward to witness the revelation, his earlier discomfort now replaced by vindication. Kevin opened his briefcase fully for the first time, revealing merger documents, legal briefs, and financial projections. The papers that Susan had dismissed as fraudulent business materials were actually contracts worth nearly $1 billion. These documents detail our comprehensive diversity audit, Kevin explained, lifting a thick folder marked Confidential Board Review. Real-world testing was Phase 1. Ms. Powell and Mr. Tuz. Thompson just provided exceptional data for our compliance review. Susan's legs seemed to give way slightly. She gripped the nearest seat back for support, her seniority suddenly feeling like a liability. Her mind raced through every interaction with minority passengers, wondering which ones might have been secretly recorded or reported. The Federal Aviation Administration received our testing protocol recently, Kevin continued, producing another document stamped with official seals. This incident was officially sanctioned as a civil rights compliance audit. Your actions are now part of the federal record. Todd Mitchell finally found his voice. I didn't know. This is a misunderstanding. I never meant to. No misunderstanding, Mr. Mitchell, Kevin said calmly, his boardroom authority cutting through the man's stammering. You validated discrimination against a fellow passenger. That makes you complicit in a federal civil rights violation. Your behavior is also being documented for our passenger conduct database and potential legal proceedings. Brooks' live stream hit another major surge with the number climbing exponentially. News organizations worldwide were picking up the story. The discrimination hashtag had merged with others, creating a social media phenomenon that marketing executives would study for years. A passenger shouted, "This is better than Netflix." Another voice called out, "Sir, you're my hero." The cabin atmosphere shifted from tension to electricity as passengers realized they were witnessing David defeating Goliath in real time. Our legal team includes former Justice Department civil rights attorneys, Kevin continued, pulling out his phone to show a contact list. They're currently monitoring this live stream and preparing preliminary injunction paperwork. One phone call can suspend American Airlines federal operating licenses pending investigation. Tanya Johnson approached carefully, her security training warring with her recognition of the situation's complexity. Mr. Brooks, sir, I apologize. Officer Johnson, you conducted yourself professionally throughout this incident, Kevin interrupted. Your position was impossible, and you handled it with dignity. That will be noted in our report to the Airport Security Administration. The relief on Tanya's face was visible. Unlike the airline employees, she'd been caught between competing authorities rather than creating the problem herself. Her body language visibly relaxed for the first time since entering the aircraft. Diane's radio crackled. District Manager Ramirez en route. Legal department has been notified, Kevin repeated thoughtfully. That should be sufficient time to review the immediate consequences. He pulled out his phone, opening an app that displayed real-time American Airlines stock prices. Our ownership position gives us significant influence over share valuation. This incident, combined with social media documentation, represents what financial analysts call material reputation risk. The numbers on his screen showed trading activity. News of the incident was already affecting investor confidence. Social media sentiment analysis showed overwhelmingly negative responses to American Airlines hashtags. Stock price had dropped sharply, Kevin observed, his voice carrying the weight of financial expertise. With shares outstanding in the billions, that represents a significant market cap reduction. All from one customer service interaction. Susan Powell's face went ashen. She'd never considered that her actions could affect corporate valuation or shareholder value. Her training had focused on passenger compliance, not financial consequences or corporate liability. The ripple effects extend beyond stock price, Kevin continued, consulting another app. Our institutional investor network includes major firms. They're all monitoring for environmental, social, and governance compliance violations. He showed Diane his phone screen displaying real-time social media analytics. Sentiment toward American Airlines had dropped sharply. Engagement was overwhelmingly negative. Videos using the flight discrimination hashtag had reached millions of views. The Federal Aviation Administration requires detailed incident reports for discrimination complaints, Kevin continued, his corporate lawyer background evident in every precisely chosen word. Our legal team will ensure this evening receives thorough documentation and federal review. He produced his phone again, showing a contact list that included civil rights attorneys, federal regulators, and congressional staff members. People are currently monitoring Brooks' live stream from our offices. This incident is being analyzed for potential class action implications. Susan Powell finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Sir, there's been a terrible mistake. I was just following standard procedures. Show me the standard procedure that authorizes racial profiling, Kevin interrupted. Point to the training manual that says black passengers should be assumed fraudulent until proven otherwise. The challenge hung unanswered. Susan's mouth opened and closed without sound. Her experience suddenly worthless against this level of corporate accountability. Brian Thompson attempted damage control. Mr. Brooks, surely we can resolve this matter internally through proper channels. Mr. Thompson, this matter became external the moment you threatened to ban me from future flights. Brooks' live stream has documented everything for regulatory review and potential congressional hearings. Brooks' viewer count had reached a massive audience with international news outlets beginning live coverage. The story was beyond containment now, spreading through news networks, social media, and aviation industry channels like wildfire. Kevin retrieved another document from his briefcase. Federal Aviation Regulation Part addresses involuntary removal of passengers. None of the legal criteria were met. This was discrimination, pure and simple. He held up a legal brief thick enough to stop bullets. Our preliminary injunction paperwork is already prepared. Brooks Capital Partners has the legal resources to tie American Airlines in federal court for years. The threat wasn't empty corporate posturing. Brooks Capital Partners employed more attorneys than some government agencies. Their legal resources could tie American Airlines in regulatory knots for years. Todd Mitchell stood abruptly from the seat, finally understanding his precarious position. I should probably return to my original seat. You should probably contact your employer's legal department, Kevin suggested. Your comments are recorded on multiple platforms. Learn Your Place will likely become Exhibit A in discrimination training seminars nationwide. The cabin door opened and Elena Ramirez entered with the urgency of someone whose career was in free fall. Years with American Airlines had prepared her for many crises, but not this one. Mr. Brooks, she said immediately, bypassing all subordinates, I deeply apologize for this unprecedented situation. Ms. Ramirez? Apologies don't address systemic problems, Kevin replied. Your company has to present a comprehensive action plan addressing the discrimination patterns documented. He handed her a final business card. Our law firm specializes in corporate compliance and civil rights litigation. They'll be expecting your call. The live stream audience watched in fascination as one of America's largest airlines scrambled to contain damage from a single customer service interaction. The story had everything: corporate drama, social justice, hidden power, and real-time consequences. Passengers throughout the cabin began applauding spontaneously. The sound built from scattered claps to thunderous ovation. Brooks' phone captured the moment when ordinary travelers celebrated extraordinary justice. Kevin stood slowly, his bearing transformed from victim to executive. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our impromptu case study in customer service excellence. Ms. Ramirez, shall we discuss the immediate changes your company will implement? Susan Powell, Brian Thompson, and Todd Mitchell stood frozen like statues in a museum exhibit. Discrimination in the digital age. Their faces would soon become cautionary tales in corporate training programs worldwide. Elena Ramirez stepped into the aircraft cabin like a firefighter entering a burning building. Years with American Airlines had taught her to assess corporate damage quickly, but the scene before her defied all training protocols. Mr. Brooks, she began, her voice carefully modulating, I want to personally assure you that American Airlines takes these matters extremely seriously. Kevin remained seated, his briefcase open like a war room command center. Financial documents, legal briefs, and regulatory filings spread across his tray table in organized precision. Ms. Ramirez, serious situations require serious solutions. Let's discuss the metrics. He lifted a tablet displaying real-time data analytics. Brooks, Capital Partners, tracks customer satisfaction scores across all portfolio companies. American Airlines currently ranks low in passenger experience, the lowest in our transportation sector. Elena's face tightened. Those numbers weren't public knowledge, but Kevin's investment position granted access to internal performance data that even most executives never saw. Our analysis shows a significant number of discrimination complaints filed against American Airlines, with a notable increase from the previous year, many involving passengers of color. Brooks' livestream had reached a huge audience, but now major news networks were providing live coverage. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News had all interrupted regular programming for breaking news coverage of the American Airlines discrimination incident. Susan Powell stood frozen near the galley, her career imploding in real time. Brian Thompson clutched his radio like a lifeline, but no amount of ground control could save him from this corporate meltdown. The financial implications extend beyond stock price volatility, Kevin explained, pulling up another screen. Our environmental, social, and governance assessment directly influences our investment strategy. This incident represents a material breach of our partnership agreement. Elena pulled out her own tablet, frantically consulting corporate crisis management protocols. Mr. Brooks, what immediate actions would demonstrate our commitment to addressing these concerns? Accountability comes first, Kevin replied. Ms. Powell will be immediately suspended pending a full investigation. Mr. Thompson will undergo comprehensive bias training before returning to passenger-facing duties. He gestured toward the live stream documentation. Brooke Larson's video provides unambiguous evidence of discriminatory conduct. Federal Aviation Administration regulations require immediate reporting of civil rights violations. Todd Mitchell, still trembling in the seat, finally found the courage to speak. Mr. Brooks, I sincerely apologize for my behavior. I had no right to. Mr. Mitchell, your apology is noted but insufficient, Kevin interrupted. American Airlines will implement a passenger conduct database tracking discriminatory behavior. Your actions qualify for inclusion. The threat wasn't empty. Airlines maintain sophisticated databases tracking passenger behavior, and inclusion could affect future travel privileges across multiple carriers. Our legal department has identified specific Federal Aviation Administration violations from this incident, Kevin continued, consulting a legal brief. Each violation carries potential fines. Elena's hands shook slightly as she calculated the potential financial exposure. Fines could devastate quarterly earnings and trigger regulatory scrutiny across the entire operation. The Department of Transportation has granted our firm special investigation authority, Kevin added, producing an official document with federal seals. This incident will be documented as part of our comprehensive civil rights compliance audit. He opened his phone to reveal a conference call with participants. Our legal team is currently preparing preliminary injunction paperwork. We can suspend American Airlines federal operating certificates pending investigation. The cabin fell silent, except for the hum of engines and the soft murmur of Brooks' live stream commentary. Passengers in nearby rows leaned forward, recognizing they were witnessing corporate history unfold. However, Kevin continued, his tone suggesting negotiation rather than destruction. Brooks Capital Partners believes in rehabilitation over punishment. We're prepared to work with American Airlines on comprehensive reform. Elena seized the opening. What specific changes would satisfy your compliance requirements? Kevin retrieved a thick document marked Confidential Board Proposal. The Brooks Protocol, a 5-point diversity action plan developed by our civil rights attorneys and organizational psychologists. He outlined the requirements with boardroom precision. Point 1. Immediate implementation of bias recognition training for all customer-facing employees, mandatory with annual recertification. Point 2. Real-time discrimination monitoring system using artificial intelligence to analyze passenger interactions. Warning systems alert supervisors to potential bias incidents. Point 3. Independent civil rights ombudsman position reporting directly to the CEO. This person investigates discrimination complaints and has authority to terminate employees for violations. Point 4. Quarterly diversity audits by third-party civil rights organizations. Results published publicly and shared with federal regulators. Point 5. A substantial diversity scholarship fund supporting aviation careers for underrepresented communities. This creates pipeline diversity while demonstrating genuine commitment to change. Elena's tablet showed the financial implications, staggering costs. The numbers were staggering, but the alternative regulatory shutdown and investor flight would cost billions. Our timeline is non-negotiable, Kevin continued. American Airlines has to accept these terms or face immediate divestiture of our investment position. He showed his phone screen displaying trading data. Major firms have all contacted us. They're prepared to follow our lead if we divest. Combined, that represents significant institutional investment. The threat was carefully calculated. Losing that much institutional support would trigger a death spiral in share price and credit ratings that could take years to recover from. The broader implications extend beyond American Airlines. Kevin explained, our investor network includes pension funds representing millions of workers. They're watching this response as a test case for corporate accountability. Susan Powell finally spoke, her voice cracking with desperation. Mr. Brooks, I have a family. I've worked here for years. Please don't let one mistake destroy my career. Kevin turned to face her directly. Ms. Powell, your mistake was treating me like a criminal because of my skin color. That wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was systematic bias that's affected hundreds of passengers. He consulted another document. Our investigation found prior complaints against you involving passenger profiling. This wasn't your first offense. It was simply the first time you were held accountable. The number hit the cabin like a physical blow. Complaints meant years of discriminatory behavior, a pattern of bias that management had ignored until now. Brian Thompson attempted one final defense. Mr. Brooks, we were following established protocols for passenger disputes. Show me the protocol authorizing racial profiling. Kevin challenged. Produce the training manual that says black passengers should be treated as suspected criminals. Thompson opened his mouth, then closed it without speaking. No such protocol existed, and everyone knew it. Elena checked her watch. Mr. Brooks, I need to conference with our executive team and legal department. Can we schedule a formal meeting? The board meeting is coming up, Kevin replied. Your response determines whether Brooks Capital Partners increases our investment or divests entirely. He began packing his briefcase with methodical precision. Ms. Ramirez, American Airlines just received the most expensive customer service lesson in aviation history. The question is whether you'll learn from it. Brooks' live stream had reached a massive audience with clips spreading across every social media platform. The story was already being covered by international news outlets, making this a global public relations crisis. The civil rights movement didn't end in the 1960s, Kevin said quietly. It evolved into boardrooms and stock portfolios. You learned that economic power can enforce social justice more effectively than protests or litigation. He stood slowly, his executive presence now undeniable. Ladies and gentlemen, discrimination is expensive. American Airlines is about to discover exactly how expensive. The cabin erupted in spontaneous applause again, louder than before. Passengers who'd witnessed discrimination transform into accountability cheered for justice served. Susan Powell, Brian Thompson, and Todd Mitchell would never forget the night they learned that quiet power speaks louder than raised voices. Soon after, American Airlines CEO Thomas Bennett stood before an emergency board meeting, his prepared statement trembling in his hands. The Brooks Capital Partners conference room buzzed with tension as Kevin Brooks reviewed the airline's proposed response. "Mr. Brooks," Thomas Bennett began, "American Airlines accepts full responsibility for the incident. We're prepared to implement immediate changes." The live stream fallout had been devastating. Brooke Larson's video reached millions of views across platforms. Flight discrimination dominated trending topics globally. Stock price dropped sharply in trading, erasing significant market value. "Susan Powell has been terminated effective immediately," Thomas Bennett announced. "Our investigation revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior with documented complaints we failed to address properly." Kevin nodded approvingly. "And Mr. Thompson suspended without pay, mandatory completion of bias training program, and permanent reassignment to non-passenger duties. His supervisory privileges have been revoked." The swift action reflected corporate panic. American Airlines' legal department had worked through the night calculating exposure from potential class action lawsuits and federal investigations. "The Brooks Protocol has been approved by our board of directors," Thomas Bennett continued. "Implementation begins with a substantial budget allocation for the first phase." Kevin consulted his tablet. "Explain the timeline specifics. Bias training rollout starts across all hubs. Employees will complete certification. The AI monitoring system goes live with beta testing beginning at major airports." Elena Ramirez entered with implementation updates. The Civil Rights Ombudsman position has been posted. "We're interviewing former Department of Justice attorneys and NAACP executives for the role." "Quarterly diversity audits will be conducted by the Southern Poverty Law Center," Thomas Bennett added. "Results published on our website and submitted to the Department of Transportation." The Diversity Scholarship Fund had already generated positive media coverage with applications opening for aviation programs at historically black colleges and universities. Brooke Larson's role in documenting the incident earned her recognition beyond viral fame. CNN offered her a correspondent position covering civil rights issues. Her live stream had become a case study in citizen journalism's power to enforce corporate accountability. Todd Mitchell's employer terminated his consulting contract, Kevin noted, consulting his phone. His comments during the incident violated their diversity and inclusion policies. The passenger conduct database was already operational. Mitchell's profile included warnings about discriminatory behavior, potentially affecting his ability to travel on multiple airlines. Officer Tanya Johnson received commendation from Airport Security Administration for her professionalism during the crisis. Her careful handling of an impossible situation became training material for security personnel nationwide. "The ripple effects extend beyond American Airlines," Kevin observed. "Other major carriers have all announced enhanced bias training programs. The industry is taking notice. Federal Aviation Administration administrator issued new guidance requiring airlines to report discrimination incidents promptly." Congressional hearings were scheduled to examine systemic bias in commercial aviation. "Our investor confidence has stabilized," Thomas Bennett reported carefully. "Major firms confirmed continued support following your announcement of increased investment rather than divestiture." Brooks Capital Partners had surprised the market by increasing their American Airlines position, demonstrating faith in the company's reform efforts. The additional investment sent stock prices soaring, recovering all losses from the initial incident. "Real change requires ongoing accountability." Kevin emphasized, "Our compliance reviews will monitor progress on every metric." The transformation wasn't just cosmetic. American Airlines restructured their entire customer service philosophy around dignity and respect. Employee evaluations now included bias assessment scores. Promotion requirements included demonstrated cultural competency. "We will evaluate the program's effectiveness." Kevin announced, "Success means continued partnership. Failure means immediate divestiture and public documentation of shortcomings." The threat remained real. Brooks Capital Partners' influence extended throughout the investment community. Their approval or condemnation could make or break corporate reputations. Jamal, the coach flight attendant who'd witnessed Susan's discrimination, was promoted to diversity training coordinator. His insider perspective on discriminatory practices made him invaluable for identifying problem areas. This incident demonstrates that economic leverage creates faster change than legal action. Kevin reflected corporate boardrooms respond to financial pressure more quickly than courtrooms. The Brooks Protocol became industry standard. Other investment firms adopted similar ESG enforcement strategies, using economic power to drive social progress. American Airlines will become the industry leader in inclusive customer service, Thomas Bennett pledged. This failure becomes the foundation for excellence. Kevin closed his briefcase, satisfied with the comprehensive response. Mr. Ramirez ensured that every employee understands the lesson. Discrimination is expensive, but accountability is profitable. The quiet revolution had succeeded. Power, wielded responsibly, created lasting change that no amount of protesting could have achieved. Economic justice had proven more effective than legal justice. American Airlines learned that treating customers with dignity wasn't just morally right, it was financially essential. Later, American Airlines reported the highest customer satisfaction scores in company history. The Brooks Protocol had transformed not just policies, but corporate culture itself. Kevin Brooks stood before the Aviation Diversity Summit, addressing industry leaders from around the world. His quiet victory had inspired a movement that extended far beyond airlines. Dignity isn't negotiable, he told the audience. When we demanded accountability, we created lasting change that protects every traveler who follows. The numbers told the story. Discrimination complaints across participating airlines dropped industry-wide. Minority business travel increased on carriers implementing bias training programs. The economic impact of inclusion had become undeniable. Brooke Larson's documentary premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, winning the Audience Award for Best Documentary Feature. Her citizen journalism had evolved into a platform for exposing systemic inequality across industries. One phone recording changed everything, Brooke reflected in interviews. It proves that ordinary people can hold extraordinary power accountable when they document truth. The Equality in Transit Foundation, established with Kevin's leadership, had awarded substantial funds in aviation scholarships to underrepresented students. Recipients were now enrolled in pilot training programs at historically black colleges. Corporate America took notice. The Brooks model spread to the hospitality, retail, and healthcare sectors. Investment firms adopted ESG enforcement strategies, using economic leverage to drive social progress across industries. Susan Powell's termination became a cautionary tale in business schools nationwide. Her discriminatory actions cost American Airlines significant resources in immediate reforms, plus incalculable reputation damage that took years to repair. Economic consequences speak louder than moral arguments, Kevin observed during a Harvard Business School lecture. When discrimination becomes expensive, corporations change quickly. The Federal Department of Transportation adopted the Brooks Protocol as recommended guidelines for all commercial airlines. Bias training, monitoring systems, and accountability measures became industry requirements rather than voluntary initiatives. These real-life stories demonstrate that quiet power can overcome systemic injustice more effectively than confrontation. Kevin's strategic response created touching stories of transformation that continue inspiring change today. Black stories like this remind us that progress happens when preparation meets opportunity. Life stories of dignity defended through economic leverage prove that justice takes many forms. Todd Mitchell eventually issued a public apology, participating in diversity training seminars where he shared his experience as a cautionary tale. His willingness to acknowledge complicity and discrimination became part of his rehabilitation. Officer Tanya Johnson was promoted to Airport Security Training Director, developing protocols that balance authority with respect for passenger dignity. The ripple effects continue today. Every time a passenger receives respectful treatment, regardless of race, the flight's legacy lives on. Every airline employee who chooses inclusion over bias honors the courage of those who demanded change. Real stories have real power, Kevin concluded his summit address. When we document discrimination and demand accountability, we create the change we want to see. If you've experienced discrimination while traveling, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your experience creates change. These touching stories of quiet power overcoming bias need to be heard. Subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more accounts of dignity defended and justice served. Together we document truth and demand the respect we deserve. In the end, what happened on that American Airlines flight wasn't just about one man's seat or one flight attendant's mistake. It was a powerful reminder that true power doesn't always roar. It often moves in silence, dressed in quiet dignity and backed by preparation. Kevin Brooks could have lost his temper, raised his voice, or given in to humiliation, but instead, he chose composure, strategy, and grace. He showed us that the most devastating response to injustice isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's excellence paired with undeniable proof. His calm authority turned a moment of painful discrimination into a life-changing lesson for an entire corporation and thousands watching live. Never underestimate the quiet strength of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they're worth. This story touches the heart because it proves that real justice doesn't always come from shouting the loudest. It comes when good people refuse to shrink, when preparation meets opportunity, and when dignity refuses to negotiate. It reminds every one of us that the way we treat others, especially when no one seems to be watching, can cost far more than we ever imagine, or create far more good than we ever dreamed. So the next time life puts you in a seat you've rightfully earned but someone tries to move you, remember, Kevin, stand tall, stay calm, and let your excellence speak. What about you? Have you ever faced discrimination or unfair treatment and responded with quiet power instead of anger? How did it feel, and what did you learn? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your voice truly matters. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or inspired you to stand a little taller, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss these powerful, real-life stories of courage, dignity, and justice. Together, we keep shining light where it's needed most. Thank you for being here.